wonder if each of you maybe can talk about sort of what the development community can learn from and how we can integrate more closely with the business community.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the kind of bets that we're going after, Raj was saying this morning, polio is down to the last 1%. Malaria is down by over 60%, I believe, compared to a few decades ago. These are really, really big problems. If you look at recent news for Microsoft's intent to acquire LinkedIn for 26 plus billion, to help people get assistance when they're writing their Word documents. So if you remember, there used to be a paperclip with two eyes that showed up in old versions of Microsoft. So you're going to replace that with some artificial intelligence and some professional from LinkedIn. It's not saving 100,000 lives a year, but that's huge, huge bets, huge amounts of optimism and well-adjusted perceptions of risk that you're seeing in problems that, of that nature that are being addressed that aren't really present when we're talking about things that, in my opinion, are much larger. Eliminating malaria, we need to see that kind of big bet and belief in the future that we see in business applied to the world of development as well. Else, we're not really going to get anywhere any soon because it requires that approach to be able to get there quickly.
I think one thought that occurs to me, given kind of where we are positioned, is that I still see a lot of skepticism on both sides about working together, right? So when we interact with leaders in the business community, people who have built massive businesses and now have the wealth and the influence to give back and make a difference, a lot of them are skeptical about doing good while investing. A lot of them, somewhere in their heart, truly believe that you can't really do something great for your customers, solve poverty, and also do it in like a sustainable way with a business. A lot of them feel like that's a dichotomy that will never really meet. And similarly, on the foundation side, we meet a lot of people who feel like as soon as it's a business as opposed to a nonprofit, right? As soon as there is a profit motive, you will eventually come around to screwing your customers. So on both sides of the aisle, there is actually the same commonly held belief that for-profit businesses will eventually screw their customers. And the reason why I chose to build a career in impact investing is I want to refute that. And we need more people to ask the question, okay, is there evidence to refute this? Is there a structure to refute it? And I think so far, like everyone who's tried, like no one has gathered real momentum, right? You have the whole B Corp movement in the US, which I guess you could say it has momentum, but it's still really slow. We need so much more of it. The idea that a company could be more than just, maximizing shareholder value, like it's such a limited idea. We can do more with a company, right? So for me, I think that's the biggest problem, the fact that there are too many people on both sides who still believe that a for-profit business will not truly serve its customers in the end. And we need to try to come together and prove to ourselves that this is possible and is the best way to build businesses. Of course, I mean, this is kind of motherhood and apple pie. It's a very, very difficult structure and conversation to have.
Well, first I'd like to really agree with what ASHIFI said about the importance of taking some big bets. These are really important issues. We need to take big bets. We need to be willing to take risks. We need to be willing to fail and learn from the experiences. These issues are too important. We need the best minds. We need innovation, the same kind of innovative approaches to solving other commercial problems of the world applied to the biggest problems facing humanity. I'd also like to pick up on a theme that really has come up from everyone, and that's sort of the viewpoint of the customer. And it's the same in the aid world. We have to put our shoes in we have to put ourselves in the shoes of, or the flip-flops or the bare feet of the people who we're trying to assist. And so often we don't. Your example of the pineapple storage facility or device is such a classic one. There's so many others like that where well-intentioned aid efforts really are misguided. They waste huge amounts of money. They don't serve the needs of the people. Transportation of hugely expensive shelter supplies, huge transportation costs, and then the supplies themselves, and people get them and immediately sell them and buy fresh vegetables for their kids. It's like Sandhya, you were saying, we know what people want. It's not so hard. I mean, if you really put yourself in their shoes, they want shelter for their family. They want basic health care. They need food and education. And if we work with them very closely, work on the ground, work with organizations who know the ground well, and that combination of government, NGO, traditional aid agency, and the philanthropists, the tech companies, everyone has a role to play, but no one has an answer on their own. But together, bringing our respective capabilities, I think we can really make a big difference. And that's what's exciting going forward, where there are some new actors coming into this space who have a really essential contribution to make. And I think great things can be done when we work together.
It strikes me that the sort of radical transparency that we see now in terms of the data available, we can see some of these inefficiencies for the first time, right? Whereas before, maybe it would be easier to fudge if this wasn't quite working, or if the customer wasn't quite satisfied with this product, and either in the aid sense or the business sense. I mean, do you see that aspect of it as transformative, or potentially a tool that could be used to really link up the customer with the service, whether that's through a business or whether it's through aid delivery?
I think transparency is so important. First, in the United Nations, and having the UN open its books and be really clear about what it is and isn't accomplishing with the money it gets. I'm such a big believer in transparency and bureaucracies. But also, if we think ahead, people who are living in very difficult circumstances, whether it's a conflict setting or just a really desperate situation, a lot of them will still have cell phones, and the power of information, either whether it's prices of agricultural commodities or who's the warlord in that area and what are they up to, and doing kind of crowdsourcing of information to really bring pressure on the bad guys and have them become much more well known and pressure them in a way that traditionally a mother whose daughter's been raped hasn't been able to. So I think we need to think down the road and understand what information can do and the application of information in different ways can do to address some of the most pressing problems folks are facing.
Absolutely, yeah.
I think for us, this kind of has a very practical manifestation. We believe that if nothing that you can't measure can be affected or improved, right? You have to be able to measure it in some form to be able to make decisions based on it. So whenever we see companies that are building product without being able to kind of source direct data from customers, and not just what customers are saying, the whole survey mechanism is quite deeply flawed, but how customers are using things, how much they are using it, how little they are using it. If you are not able to be transparent to yourself as a development organization or a business, you will never be able to have confidence in your own views about whether you're able to have impact, or whether this is something worth fighting for when the chips are down. So we put a lot of pressure on our founders and our teams to kind of slow down very early on and build the infrastructure to gather data first. Before you're already kind of out of control in 20 towns and have millions of customers and you're not sure how they're using your service, you have to build the infrastructure. And I think that rule is true for many situations where you have a lot at stake and you're kind of going in blind, right? Even like a refugee crisis where you don't know what people are doing with the resources you send them, or how it's affecting, like the local prices of food or homes going up because you've given too much of the wrong thing to the wrong people. These are all issues because people are not It's not kind of, I wouldn't say that people have a bad intention. It's not that someone is trying to hide things. It's just that no one is prepared. No one has taken the time to create information channels for transparent data. And I think that's something that, especially for humanitarian crisis, the government really needs to step in and say, we'll do this because we know something bad is going to happen. It always does. And for businesses, it's something they need to invest in so that they don't fool themselves about what they are building.
Absolutely.